man doesn't always know why he does things, Louis. I think I did it because your daughter ain't ready for her favorite pet to die. Maybe with more time she'll learn what death really is, which is where the pain stops and the good memories begin.
Has anyone ever buried a person up there?
Christ on his throne, no. And whoever would?
Pet Sematary is a 1989 horror film adapted from Stephen King's 1983 novel that would find box office success and become one of the last memorable horror movies released during the decade of the 1980s. Louis and Rachel Creed, played by Dale Midkiff and Denise Crosby, move themselves and their two children, daughter Ellie, played by Blaise Berdal, and 2-year-old son Gage, played by Miko Hughes, from Chicago, Illinois, to rural Ludlow, Maine, after Louis secures a job as a physician at the University of Maine. The family soon befriends their neighbor, Judd Crandall, played by Fred Gwynne, who warns the family about the dangerous road nearby where truckers often inadvertently kill pets and animals.
You know that path your wife commented on? That road and those Orinco trucks, the two main reasons is there.
Well, where does it lead?
Pet Sematary.
Ha. Pet Cemetery.
There's that damn road. Uses up a lot of animals. Dogs and cats, mostly.
My little girl's got a cat. Winston Churchill. Call him Church for short.
I'd get him fixed if I were you. Fixed cat don't tend to wander. He's all the time crossing back and forth on that road. His luck will run out.
Soon after, he takes the family on a hike down to an isolated pet cemetery in the forest area behind the Creed's new home.
I told you it's a bad road, Louis. It's killed a lot of pets and made a lot of kids unhappy. At least something good come of it. This place. Couldn't plant nothing but corpses here anyway, I guess.
How can you call it a good thing? A graveyard for pets killed in the road. Built by broken-hearted children.
Well, they have to learn about death somehow, now don't they, Mrs. Creed?
Why? Can I have the baby?
Oh. That's where I buried my dog Spot when he died of old age in 1924. Ellie, do you know what a graveyard really is?
Well, I guess not.
It's a place where the dead speak. No, not right out loud. Their stones speak, or their markers. This ain't a scary place, Ellie. It's a place of rest and speaking. Can you remember that?
Yes, sir.
On his first day of work at the university, Louis encounters a student named Victor Pascoe, played by Brad Greenquist, fatally wounded after being struck by a car.
Start a cardiac monitor.
Yes, sir.
Need large bores. All right, get an ambulance here and get it right now. You gotta go to EMC.
Oh, it
I know it
do
won't, but
any
for God's
good.
sake, let's do it by the rules, okay? Now move.
Even though he knows the guy is dead, Louis tries his best to go through the standard resuscitation protocols.
The soil of a man's heart is stonier, Louis.
How did you know my name?
Later that night, in what seems like a strange dream, Victor's ghost visits Louis.
Why are you here?
I want to help you because you tried to help me.
And warns him about the pet cemetery and tells him that the ground is sour. Louis awakens, assuming it was a dream, but his feet are covered in dirt. Not being a big fan of Rachel's parents, Lewis stays home alone during the Thanksgiving holiday while she visits them in Chicago. He receives a call from Judd informing him that Ellie's cat Church has been struck and killed by a trucker. Realizing that Ellie will be devastated, Judd takes Lewis far, far beyond Pet Sematary, well back, deep into the woods. They reach an ancient Micmac Indian burial ground. Judd instructs Lewis to bury the dead cat there and forbids him to tell anybody about it.
What we did, Lois, was a secret thing. Women are supposed to be the ones who are good at keeping secrets. But any woman who knows anything at all will tell you she's never seen into a man's heart. The soil of a man's heart, Lewis, is stonier. Like the soil up there in the old Micmac burying ground.
The next day, a reanimated Church returns to the house, but he smells bad, moves strangely, has glowing eyes, and is vicious towards Lewis. Things appear to finally be normal again until one day, Gage ends up running into the road.
Don't let him go on the road, Lewis!
Get him, Lewis! Get the baby! Get the baby!
And in one of the most awful scenes in movie history, is struck and killed instantly by a trucker. After the unimaginable loss of his child, Judd tells Lewis not to even think about burying his dead son in the ancient burial grounds. Judd believes that introducing Lewis to the ritual ground might have aroused the evil forces present there, which may have even caused Gage's death. Judd also tells him the story of a man named Bill Baderman, who buried his son Timmy in the Micmac burial grounds after Timmy was killed near the end of World War II.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better.
Timmy returned from the dead, not as a human, but as a zombie, terrifying the townsfolk.
The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond the Pet Cemetery ain't human at all.
A group of men got together, including Judd, destroying Timmy by lighting the house on fire, where his father Bill also perished.
Sometimes that is better. You see, Lewis, what I'm getting at. You understand.
You're telling me that place knew Gage was going to die.
I'm saying that the place might have made Gage die because I introduced you to the power. I may have murdered your son, Lewis.
After Gage's gut-wrenching funeral, Rachel and Ellie travel to Chicago with her parents while Lewis remains at home. Despite warnings from Judd and Victor Pascow,
Remember, Doc, the barrier was not meant to be crossed. The ground is sour.
Lewis has every intention of exhuming his son's body and burying him in the sour ground. This story was based on the 1983 novel of the same name and was inspired by actual events experienced by Stephen King that occurred while he was living in Orrington, Maine with his family. King recalled that while living there, his daughter's cat was killed on the highway. Much of the character of Ellie Creed's emotional outburst were taken directly from King's own grief-stricken daughter.
What if he dies and has to go to the Pet Cemetery?
Honey, Church will be fine.
No, he won't. Not in the end. In the end, he's gonna croak, isn't he?
Lovey. Church might still be alive when you're in high school, and that's a very long time.
It doesn't seem long to me. It seems short.
Well, if it was up to me, I'd let Church live to be 100, but I don't make up the rules.
Oh, who does? God, I suppose. He's not God's cat, he's my cat. Let God get his own if he wants one. Not mine. Not mine.
King also had a memory that one time his youngest son had almost run into the road while a truck was speeding down it, much like the character of Gage does in the film. The character of Judd Crandall was based on the elderly neighbor that lived across the road from King, and there was an actual pet cemetery in the woods behind the King house, which became the basis for the one in the novel. Stephen King once mentioned that this was the only one of his novels that really scared him, and as stipulated by King when he sold the rights, Pet Sematary was shot in Maine where the story was set, and Stephen King himself wrote the screenplay. It was filmed from September to November of 1988. Bruce Campbell was the first choice for the role of Louis Creed, but director Mary Lambert said that Fred Gwynne was her first and only choice for the role of Judd Crandall. Fred Gwynne's hair was actually black, so he dyed his hair white on a regular basis during the filming of this movie. This was the debut film for young actor Miko Hughes, who was only 31 to 33 months during production. He would go on to have roles in movies such as Kindergarten Cop,
Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Mercury Rising,
Simon, what does it say?
Today, 12 o'clock, Wrigley Building.
Good boy.
and he had a recurring role as one of Michelle Tanner's friends on the ABC sitcom Full House.
So you guys decided to show up.
There's no rule in this league. Don't you have to be like, say, this tall to be obnoxious?
This movie opened into theaters at blockbuster levels, grossing $57.5 million in the United States and $32 million overseas for a worldwide total of $89.5 million, making Pet Sematary a huge box office success. In fact, Pet Sematary was in the top 20 highest grossing films of 1989, which for a 1980s thriller horror film is quite impressive. In 1989, this movie grossed more money in theaters than National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Major League, The Burbs, and even The Little Mermaid. Pet Sematary director Mary Lambert was better known for her work directing music videos, especially those for Madonna, including the Material Girl video in 1985 and the Like a Prayer video in 1989. Through her work in the music industry, Lambert was friends with the Ramones, who were one of Stephen King's favorite bands. She approached them about recording a song for the film, and they agreed to write and perform Pet Sematary, which is featured during the closing end credits. The song Pet Sematary would become one of the Ramones' biggest charting singles, reaching number 4 on the Billboard's Modern Rock charts in June of 1989. Pet Sematary is a movie that shows how horror trends were changing by the end of the decade of the 1980s. The slasher films with the masked killers and the synthesizer music had run their course, and those films were not as popular by the late 1980s. What you began to see were films like Pet Sematary, sleek, smart, high-quality, fresh horror thrillers. Films like Pet Sematary helped bridge the gap between the 1980s slasher films and the 1990s smart horror films. I first saw this movie in the late 1990s, and I remember being very impressed. I watch it from time to time, and it holds up very well. I highly recommend Pet Sematary.